Van Dijk, you've got Ligt and De Jong as well. I thought De Jong in particular just seemed to be at a different level completely in this game.
Well, both him and Van Dijk particularly have got cigars out. You know, they never look under pressure. They never look as though they're not in total control. They don't make mistakes. I mean, you're starting to talk about the perfect footballer here, particularly for somebody in the middle of the park. You know, to play in the middle of the park is one of the toughest places to be able to be composed and to make time for yourself. And De Jong, every time he gets it, whether there's somebody up his back or not, seems to have time to play not only play a pass, but actually play positive passes and pick out a teammate.
I think the beauty of De Jong's game is that when he does have the ball, he can pick out a pass, whether under pressure or not, where, listen, there are a number of world-class talented players who can do as much. But on the other side of the ball, De Jong is as good as it gets as well, in terms of tracking runners, in terms of covering ground, and then just seems to switch over rather seamlessly. For somebody at that age to be playing both sides of the ball as well as he does, it's a very rare talent.
Social media is always interesting, and I use quotation marks around that, Raphael, during these sort of games, because De Ligt always halved his price now. No one will want him after giving away the penalty. Of course, gets ahead and makes a couple of key challenges as well. His performance won't make a jot of difference with it to his suitors over the summer.
No, it won't. I mean, he was also nutmegged. It was a very up and down game. But I think indicative of that lack of game time he's had. When did the Dutch league finish? What, 3 weeks ago? More than that even. So he was bound to look rusty. But the attention, the appeal is real. The kid is 19. And, you know, for centre-backs, that is incredibly young. He's probably 6, 7, maybe 10 years away from his peak. So you can understand why there's a host of clubs queuing up. The latest, as you would have seen from ESPN's coverage today, is it looks as if PSG... at least giving out that vibe that they're quite confident they might have snatched them away from Barcelona.
More on that a little later on in the show. From a defender's point of view, Steve, it was interesting that you were saying, yes, those challenges look great when he goes to ground, but you've got to be careful. That's something that you would expect him to mature over the years. Yeah,
well, listen, he's made 3 desperation tackles in his own penalty box during his game. And he's got one wrong and it's cost him a goal. But he's 19, and that's the kind of maturity that we're talking about that he still has to go through. But it's interesting, we've just been talking about a guy who was a little older than 19 in stones, and we were saying exactly the same thing. Yeah. This guy looks great on the ball. This guy's this. He just needs to mature. Well, Stones hasn't matured. Now, De Ligt, I would suggest, is starting a little bit higher up the ladder at 19 than Stones did, but he has to mature. You can't go to ground unless it's do or die, because if you get it wrong, and as you saw in this game, he got it wrong, and they lost the goal.
But you take that chance on a player like De Ligt, who has the physical attributes that he does. And listen, what we saw during the course of this game is nothing different. I think that many people have come to understand with De Ligt. He's an incredibly talented player, full of promise, but far from the completed article. We saw a similar lack of experience in the dying moments of the second leg against Spurs, where he doesn't make that challenge and doesn't get close enough, and it ultimately cost Ajax their place in the Champions League final. So you take that and with the understanding or the hope that he gets better, because if he improves, there are, again, few talents like his.
OK, then, so the final is confirmed. It is, of course, this weekend. Portugal against Netherlands. Preceding that, on the same day, Switzerland against England. I think we'll do a whole special show looking ahead to that one. But let's focus, shall we, on Portugal against the Dutch. Who have you got, Stevie?
You'd have to go with the Portuguese.
Why?
Because the Dutch will be out on the feet. You know, as a team, as a football team, I think the Dutch are better than Portugal. But you know what? Portuguese are at home, and they've got the deciding factor.
Right.
A guy called Ronaldo, and he's the reason they will win this game. Apart from the Dutch being absolutely out on the feet.
Look, over the course of the last 2 games, I thought by far the Dutch was the best of the 4 teams, and make them better than Portugal. Saying that, I think the Portuguese play into the Dutch's hands in that regard, in that they're not going to press. They're not going to force the Dutch into working overly hard. It's going to be about Dutch possession and the Portuguese counterattacks, which I think I think the Dutch cope with well enough. I'm going to go Netherlands.
You're going with the Dutch?
Yep.
Raph, it's a daft question, really, isn't it, if I was to ask you how seriously Cristiano Ronaldo will take this, because we all know the answer.
Yeah, it's massive for him. It's Portugal. It's another international trophy. It's another feather in his cap as far as the slightly absurd comparison with Messi is concerned, but Messi might not do it this summer. He might in different circumstances. So, of course, it's absolutely huge. And you only had to see the determination to score goals and the kind of commitment that he showed against the Swiss yesterday to understand just how important this game is for him.
For more, sign up now for ESPN+.